raped you. They raped you. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. Don't worry. I'll never let them hurt you again. Never again.
Oh, come on, guy. It didn't hurt you that bad. It's pretty bad. Alright. Well, run the credits while I help this guy out.
It's a dark night. Dark night. It's a dark night.
And hell followed him.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's movie review of Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, starring Benjamin Walker and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Why? I just don't get it. Why must the things I love always be butchered? Why do the things that I hold dearest to my heart always get hurt? How come bad things happen to good people? What have I done to Hollywood that has caused them to take the things that I love and rape them? Why? Okay, hey, breathe. Woosah, find your inner peace. Okay, obviously I did not enjoy this movie, and justifiably so. But let's rewind a few years ago to the beginning of this story. A few years ago, I was doing some shopping when I came across a book with a rather odd cover and title. It showed Abraham Lincoln holding a bloody axe and the head of a vampire. The book was called Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. At the time, I thought that the book had an immensely stupid title and that the book itself was silly, but with a title like that, you just can't help but to find out for yourself if the book was of any quality. So without expecting much, I bought the book just out of sheer curiosity and was shockingly taken aback by how good the book was. It was amazing and quite frankly one of the best stories I've read in years. Despite its goofy title, it was a great dramatic read that infused real history with a fictional story of vampires in the background. It had everything you could ever want from an excellent story, and it was truly a joy to read. Mind you, that this was way before there were talks about a movie. Later down the line, it was announced that Tim Burton would be producing this film and that the writer of the novel would be penning the script. The director of Wanted was attached to the project, which is never a good sign, but with an excellent visionary like Tim Burton and the book's writer working on this, I felt that the project was in good hands despite the hack of a director attached. As time went by, I continued to get more and more pumped up for the film, as they were going to adapt not only one of my favorite novels, but one of my favorite vampire tales ever. Fast forward to the present, as an excited me waited in the theater at a midnight screening no less of the film, only later to be violated and assaulted by what I was about to see. My life would never be the same again. Oh, God. No, I gotta press forward. I gotta be good. Just do it for the book. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter was not just a horrendous adaptation of the book, but one of, if not the worst film of the year I have seen. This film seems to go out of its way to miss the mark, which is the only thing it got right. Yeah, you heard me. The only thing this film could do with accuracy is fail on all fronts. Some people say that as an adaptation it is terrible but can be seen as a standalone film, but I would care to disagree since it cannot stand alone as a film separated from the book, and since it is an adapted story from the book, it's always going to be compared because it's not a standalone film. Others have also argued that due to the title you shouldn't expect much. It is a goofy name for a movie and a story, and thus you essentially get what you paid for, but that's not the case. Absurd title aside, the book had an amazing story, deep and fully fleshed out characters, multiple villains and story arcs, and an excellent use of drama, suspense, and horror among other things. It was a book that dared readers to venture into its world, so it may showcase how rich and great it was. So no, the title of the film does not justify it being poor quality. With that out of the way, let's get to the few good parts of the film. Benjamin Walker was an excellent choice for the role of Abraham Lincoln. He has the height and look of the man, and when reading the book, I could picture Walker in the role perfectly. His performance is the best aspect of the film, and he did a solid job carrying garbage, and did his best trying to take nothing and turn it into something. But let's be honest here, an Oscar-winning actor couldn't save this movie. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is also in the movie and tends to give a performance that feels like a roller coaster. She often comes off as confident and solid 1 minute and then completely dreadful and unbelievable in the next. But the blame can't honestly be put on Winstead, because when in the hands of a director who knows what they're doing, Winstead can bring her A game to the table. Anyone may see her in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World to know that she is indeed a talented actress. It's just that there is only so much an actress can do when everyone behind the camera is a blind monkey. The rest of the cast is highly forgettable and downright boring. You don't care for anyone and no one really stands out or generates interest. You basically follow Lincoln and Mary Todd, and even they, due to the shittiness of the script, fail to captivate. Speaking of the script, it was downright insulting. From the plot holes galore to terrible dialogue, it's no wonder the film came out so bad. But I was foolish to have faith. The initial script of this film was penned by Seth Grahame-Smith, the writer of the book. But the finalized script, which was used to shoot the movie, was written by the talentless douche that gave us X3: The Last Stand. Really? Really? Because that fucking guy did such an amazing job killing the X-Men franchise that somebody decided to hand him another story to adapt when he has clearly shown a lack in being able to pull this shit off. Fuck. The mere notion of it gives me a headache. I don't know, anyway, on to the movie. One of the worst parts about this too is that the film lacks any of the heart or emotional weight of the story. The love story between Mary Todd and Lincoln is beyond shallow and feels rushed. This laziness and poor writing spreads to other characters of the film, resulting in the audience simply not caring about who lives or dies, because there's no emotional connection or character depth. This is even worse than a slasher film, because you don't even look forward to the characters dying, you simply sit there in boredom, not giving a shit. The dynamic between the character of Henry Sturgis and Lincoln is also gone, leaving you with a bad taste of a buddy cop relationship with a dash of montage to rush an already poorly paced movie. Speaking of Henry Sturgis, it was downright insulting what they did to the character that you could essentially report it as a rape crime. Sturgis was a deep and complex character in the book. He was also sage-like, training a young Lincoln while being a surrogate father and brother figure to the man who would become a future president. He also had his own inner demons and was thoughtful yet subtle and reserved. Truly a well-crafted character, but in this abomination he is nothing more than a Jack Sparrow ripoff. A womanizer? Check. A drunkard? Check. A wandering buffoon who is also lovable? Check. He also staggers about like Jack Sparrow and has some of his mannerisms with his hand movements, and this isn't nitpicking either because it's quite apparent. Dominic Cooper has the talent to pull off the real character, but there is only so much he can do when no one is allowed to give the book justice or make a real effort in delivering a good movie. The movie also features a half-assed villain that they made up for the sake of nothing, who doesn't generate fear or interest. The movie hints at him being Adam as in the original and first human Adam, but that is as far as things go for interest, and he is a rather two-dimensional and cartoony character at best. The novel features multiple villains in multiple arcs who were all serious as the next, and if not more, being a bigger threat. None of that is found in this movie. Things are no better on the technical front thanks to Tim Beckma, who gives a flying fuck. This asshole didn't bother giving a shit to direct this movie, so I won't bother giving a rat's ass to pronounce his monkey ass last name. Just know that he can't direct his way out of a nutsack, let alone a movie. As if destroying Wanted wasn't enough, he had to bring his plague to this story too. Studios need to stop hiring this idiot. Just ship his ass back to Russia where he can continue to make terrible vampire movies. Also, one of the biggest mysteries of this film is why it looks beyond cheap. The set designs look like they were made for a high school play. I mean, I've literally seen better work done in independent films. The movie looks like an overseas made-for-TV film, and the frame rate just seems off. It's visually a mess, and to boot, the film looks really murky and lacks all sharpness and sleek found in better made films. And this time, it wasn't due to 3D, which was terrible by the way. But when viewing a movie in 3D, you risk a drop in resolution and thus lose image sharpness, but this film is still murky even in 2D. To add fuel to the fire, this movie has a reported budget of $69 million. Where did the money go? Because it most certainly did not go to the production of the movie. District 9 had a budget of $30 million and it looked like a $100 million film. And this bullshit has double the budget of District 9, yet it looks like garbage? You gotta understand, YouTube videos are visually better than this movie. The money didn't go to the cast either, because they don't have any A-list names that draw, and I would hate to think that it went to the CGI, because that was just as bad as the rest of the film and equally as cheap looking. I'm a fan of practical effects and all, but if you're going to use CGI, you should at least use it right, which was not the case for this film. It looked rushed and very tacked on. Honestly, the best description would be unfinished. It looks like an unfinished piece of work, like a video game, like a cutscene from early PlayStation 2 games. It's like they started working and then just said fuck it and released the movie. The makeup and VFX work also looks just as poor and cheap, as if money was not invested with the exception of Lincoln, who looked the part when aged, but the same cannot be said for Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who failed to convince anyone that she was in her 50s with that makeup job. Wardrobe is just as tacky, and the film is shot in such an amateur manner that it pains the eyes. There is no sense of direction or camera flow. It often looks like they didn't even bother setting up shots and just blindly went at it with one take. Choreography was also awful, and the use of slowing down and speeding up the camera did not help. If anything, it hindered the movie. But that is a trademark of its shitty director, so it's to be expected, I suppose. The film also fails to define itself as something. It's not a horror movie or scary. It's not funny or an autobiography of Lincoln's life, and it is simply not an adaptation by any means of the word from the book. So what is it? It's simply a jumbled mess lost among better movies and things to do. The genre that they decided to go with is just fucking retarded, as it does not work for this film. At best, it comes off as a B movie that was made bad on purpose, but this is not clearly the case, since the film came out bad by accident. Also, B movie is not the world that this book or its story lives in. It is, as a matter of fact, the farthest thing from a B movie and has no place being adapted into such a genre. But among everything in this shitstorm, the worst crime is the pacing of the film, which was so bad that I was surprised that I survived it and walked out of the film with my brain intact from the constant assault. The film is always rushed with such a great speed that it does not allow for any ideas or words to sink in. It just rushes along to the next scene. You don't have time to absorb the story. Not that there is one, but if there was, you wouldn't be able to take anything in due to the horrible pacing. This film was literally one step away from actually cutting off characters while delivering dialogue. Yeah, that's how fast the pacing is. It never lets up, and that's in a very, very bad way. Aside from Benjamin Walker's performance, some humorous moments, and barely interesting fight scenes, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter stands as a shining turd of an example of how you should not make movies. History prefers legends to men, and I prefer good movies to crap. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter gets a 4 out of 10.